Hey everybody, welcome to the third Jay Robinson Athlete Conversation. Today we got two athletes from the 28-day Minnesota intensive camp from the summer 2014. So let's get started by having them introduce themselves. So let's start with Bennett, then we can go to Philippe. Just say your name, what city you're from, what high school you go to, and what Jay Robinson camp you went to this summer.
All right. I'm Bennett Paulson. I'm a junior. I live in Amory, Wisconsin. I go to Amory High School, and I went to the Minnesota 28-day intensive camp this summer.
All
I'm
right.
Sanchez. I'm a junior also. Live in Washington, D.C., and I go to a suitable friend school, and I went to the Minnesota 28-day camp as well.
Okay, awesome. So let's start with, I guess we'll start with Bennett on every question. Why did you decide to go to a Jay Robinson camp this summer?
I decided to go to this camp specifically because my brother went, and when he got back, he was tremendously better, and his attitude about wrestling completely changed. You could just see when he wrestled that he was he was a different style of wrestler, and I lost at state this year, um, a pretty close match, and it's something I just kind of like said to myself, I want to be like my brother, and I want to be that good, and that's what mostly drove me to do this camp. I wanted to put in the hard work, and you know, so that's why I
Yeah.
went. That's the reason.
Okay, so do you get a chance to wrestle your brother quite a bit?
Yeah, he's a little bit bigger than I am now. He's pretty big and strong, but I mean, he'll take me down more than I take him down, but you know,
Yeah.
we'll catch it up.
It'll even out over time, hopefully.
Oh yeah.
All right, Philippe.
Um, I remember I first heard about the camp through some friends and the people that had gone before, and the first time I thought about going was last summer. My coach had always said that it's not something that I needed to do because he said you're plenty fine, you're plenty tough. But this last year, I had a pretty tough loss in my district match, the qualifier to go to national preps. And I lost in the finals against a kid I'd beaten before, but in that last match, he had just beaten me up, and he was just tougher than me, and it became a close match. But I remember thinking to myself at the end of it, at the end of my season, that I didn't want to have the same result at the end of next season and look back and think to myself, what more could I have done? What else could I have done in the offseason to make me, help me win? And so when I, thought about the J Rob camp again, a 28-day camp, I knew it was the hardest camp in the country, and I knew that I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to do everything I could to help myself next season.
Right. Okay. So both you guys talked about kind of having some tough losses in your past wrestling season. In terms of kind of the wrestling technique, or I guess physical or mental things that you learned while you were at J Robinson. I mean, do you think those kinds of things that you learned are gonna you can kind of call on them or like remember the what you learned at camp to kind of get over the hurdle, basically?
Um, yeah, I'd say definitely it'll pay off. Jay talked a lot about putting in time now so you can draw from it later. And just remembering certain techniques and probably sharing it with your high school and going over that. It's gonna it's gonna benefit me definitely, and I can definitely draw from that what what I learned because I learned so much, and I really learned how mental everything is. I mean, people always think it's a lot of physical, but I mean it's almost entirely mental. Running and pushing yourself as hard as you can and just always going and giving your best is almost always mental and never physical.
Yeah.
When it came to the lessons that we learned, every night, the talks we had, Jay and the rest of the staff did a really great job of just consistently drilling in the same message, hard work. And I still think back about a lot of the quotes that Jay said about pushing through that wall, the last 5 minutes of practice, and all the little sayings that Jay has that kind of really helped put things in perspective. And I find that even now that we're in starting a football season, a lot of my fellow teammates I find myself often giving advice about a lot of the stuff that I learned from camp, and then hopefully also in wrestling season to carry that over. And a lot of it is a great job is just drilling it into you and it just really sticks with you. And as far as the technique, what really helped me was taking notes after every technique practice at night at least, and making sure that I kind of got down a lot of the stuff that I liked, and then working on the next day.
Okay, cool, cool. So I guess in those kind of following along with that, for both of you, what particular aspects of your wrestling game, whether it was technique, physical conditioning, mental toughness, anything like that, what do you think you improved this summer?
I'd say mostly, mental toughness. Obviously, there was a lot of technique that I learned, but I think if you're mentally tough and you never give up and you always keep going, you can beat a kid who's technically better than you, which is big. So I mean, learned a lot of mental toughness, and I would say that's most what's going to pay off, And I got a lot of strength from it, and and I broke a lot of walls that Jay was talking about, and if I keep up this work habit, good things will pay off. Good things come from hard work, and that's what Jay always told us.
I'd agree. Also, I think lessons in improving myself, through hard work was a really big thing that stuck with me at camp, and I think was the most improvements I made. Also, an attitude, and Jay talked a lot about your perspective and the way you look at problems, the way you look at life, and that everything can be changed the way you look at something, and that it's you can't always control what happens to you, but the way you respond to it, the way you come back from losses, and the way you respond to adversity. Those are the really things that those are the things that set apart winners from losers.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, want to go on and ask what both your guys' favorite part of camp was?
Geez, I don't know. It's hard to. I mean, it was a fun time, but I'd say my favorite part was probably, it may sound weird, and it probably wasn't my favorite part at the time, but just, wrestling live and really seeing how far, you could go. Oftentimes I'd find myself saying, this is too tough, and I mean, I can't do this, but, I'd find myself getting up, and I could still go at the same pace just because your mind's telling you not to, but you still can do a lot more than what it tells you not to, and that was kind of it was rewarding for me to know that I could keep pushing, and thinking back on it, that was a rewarding, and that sort of made it fun part about camp.
Okay. Philly?
Um, I'd say I had two times that really stuck out a lot. I'd say one of my favorite times was a lot of during water breaks in between hard practice. In the hard practice, you'd feel you only had like a couple of seconds before you got back to it, but your body at first would just feel so exhausted, especially on those first days, and you felt so defeated. But towards the end, you take a quick break, and you would think, you realized how tired you felt, but you realized that it didn't bother you anymore. And that realization of, just saying, I don't really need this much rest anymore, the realization that, you could be uncomfortable and that you're all right with that. I'd say, looking back, those are the moments that, like, really surprised me, and those are the moments I really appreciated. And then also just a chance to spend, a month with a bunch of guys that wanted to work hard, a bunch of guys that had great character, and were going through a really tough experience with you. Really created lasting bonds with. I've created lasting bonds with a lot of kids there.
Right. Cool. Cool. Okay. And then on the other side of the spectrum, what was your least favorite, or I guess it could be the hardest, could be the least favorite, could combine those two. Part of camp for you guys.
Um, Probably just either the running. I'm not too big of. I mean, I was always good at it, but it was a lot tougher than I wanted it to be, and I felt uncomfortable most of the time. But that, and like there was kids that really didn't want to be there, and that's sort of, Jay talked about how it's tougher for Navy SEALs to get along with society outside of the Navy because they're so used to a certain type of people, and the people who didn't want to be there and they didn't really care about working hard, even though they were there and they were wasting you know their parents' money and 28 days of their life and not trying to do their best, and it was kind of frustrating for me to see that they didn't want to give it their best and always keep going, and that was probably my least desirable part, is seeing people not care about something they should and they should put more time into.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So in terms of like the lasting impression of camp, I know you guys already kind of talked a little bit about the mental toughness or technique or whatever else it is that will stay with you. But what do you think, like maybe 1 year from now, like when you're, or let's say 8 months from now, when you're kind of towards the end of the wrestling season, hopefully going back to state and wrestling in that environment, what kind of skills or lessons do you think will stay with you for the long term from camp?
Um, I would say Jay's Jay's motivational stories, just the stories he told, and I mean Joe Russell coming in and talking to us about how he was a very, very good wrestler and how he achieved so much at the age of 16, and how from going from a person like that to a person that was, you know, pretty much pronounced dead. It's just it makes you think a lot more of how good you have it, and how Jay made us write a thank you letter to someone. It's gonna make me feel thankful for the life I have. Because I do have a great life, and just things like that, being thankful and realizing that you can always do more. You can always give more to people. You can always give them your best. I mean, you can always be kind. You can always do more in every sense of life, and that really stuck out to me because if everyone knew that and everyone preached that, this world might be different. But I mean, that's why we're different, and
Mhm.
that sort of speaks out too. I mean, we were trained to be different. We were trained to make a difference in this world, and that's kind of special to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Philippe, I'll let you answer that question first, the lasting impression, and then I think I might have actually skipped you on on asking what the hardest part of camp was.
Sure.
So,
Um,
so you can do both of them, I guess.
Sure. So for lasting impressions, at least, again, like what Bennett was saying about being trained to make a difference, and how there's life beyond just wrestling. Because I feel like a lot, like Jay said, this isn't a camp just to make you get better at wrestling. This is a camp that's supposed to make you become a better person, make a difference, and that is really a big eye opener because I feel like a lot of times, people get caught up in just their sport and becomes like very self-centered about themselves. But just thinking about after high school, after college, after wherever your wrestling season ends and your wrestling career ends, that life goes on and that you have to go out there and do your best in everything you do in all walks of life. You have to help people. That's your duty as a warrior, to help people and to be there for people and support them. As a leader, it's your job not to be the first one in line, but to be the last, to make sure everyone else has what they need. It was stuff like that that was stuck with me. And then also hearing a lot of the coaches' motivational stories and how a lot of them telling us that the point of setting goals is that you're not always going to reach your goals, but the goals they'll at least help you find your way along the road. And it doesn't, just because you don't achieve all you want in the short term doesn't mean you can't go on to things. There's some of the coaches that talk about never winning even a state title, but they're still able to go on and continue wrestling at Minnesota and still be D1 wrestlers and still continue on their dream. And I think that the idea that overcoming adversity and obstacles, that's something that was really stay with me. And then as far as least favorite part of camp, I'd say probably the day that we had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. After I remember someone had jaywalked and that was their second strike. And it's kind of a combination of two things. The first is that it was just like piled on top of the morning run, which was never really a lot of fun, just because you go to this everyone after a while was excited about wrestling practice because you got to wrestle, that's what you're there for. The morning runs were just brutal by themselves, so adding on top of that, waking up early, that was a lot of fun. And then also again, like what Ben was talking about, it's sometimes frustrating having to be in this high intensity environment and then having to deal with people that didn't really want to be there, people that were going to try to screw around, trying to make a lot of jokes and just do a lot of like stuff that they thought was fun, and not really recognize that this is a place to be serious, and that in the dorms you can have some fun and when appropriate, but again, dealing with people that didn't really understand that were mature, that was really kind of hard to a lot of the kids there because you get punished as a whole, not as an individual.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one important thing to realize with I guess this camp and really anything else in life is that you kind of get out of it what you put into it, and this is a perfect example of that. And in terms of however hard you're willing to work, while you're at camp is what you're going to end up getting out of it and kind of taking back. Um, okay, I know Bennett touched on this a little bit earlier. You were talking a little bit about like making friends and like staying in touch with other wrestlers after camp. Um, can I have both you talk a little bit about like the social aspect of camp? Whether you made some friends there, are you going to stay in touch with them? Kind of what was it like outside of the wrestling, just in terms of like interacting with all the other athletes there?
I mean, yeah, it's really easy to get along with people who are going through the same thing you are, and they want to reach sort of a similar goal with you. So I mean, if wrestling wouldn't be a similarity between the two of you, you might not be the best of friends, but you sort of pull together um, when you need to, because you need to rely on people who are striving for the same goals you are. And I mean that's one of the most important things. You need to surround yourself with the best possible kids you can, and if you do that, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. So I mean, yeah, I made some pretty good friends at camp. I haven't really did the best job of staying in touch with them. I still sort of talk to Tanner Swinehart every once in a while, but I mean he's the only one I really talk to. But yeah, I mean it's different now that I'm outside of camp. I feel like other it just sort of aggravates me that other people don't can't strive to be better, and that's what every kid at J Rob wanted to do. So it's sort of different being out in the world now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Philippe.
Yeah, I agree. I think the friendships I made there and the people that I became friends with at camp. I think were some of the the greatest people that I've met just because of their attitude, their work ethic. A lot of these people there were really solid kids. At least the ones that came there to get better. I had the fortune, the good luck to have a roommate that I got along with really well. And I still keep in touch with them a little bit today, but I still remember on the weekends when we had those nice kind of Sundays off in a sense. We only had 2 instead of 4 practices. You had time to kind of go out with some friends and get dinner. It's like those simple moments that you learn to like cherish. It kind of felt like like an island, and like amidst the like a lot of hard work and a lot of like pain. It was a nice little time just to be with friends and kind of appreciate appreciate the people around you and just really have an appreciation for the hard work and the same attitude that everyone there shared.
Right, absolutely. Okay, great. For future campers, what kind of recommendations or advice do you have for people that are going to come to camp in future years?
Um, I don't really know. I mean, just expect that it's gonna be tough, but definitely try to make the most out of it, because our camp quote this year was whatever you put into the day is important, because time is the most important thing. There were times where, I would look at the day calendar and the next day it would say day 5 and I'm like, oh my God, I got 23 more days of this, and then I'd just be like, why am I here? But if you make the most out of it, it will pay off. I mean, like you said, you get out of it what you put into it, and if you put in everything you got, you're going to get a lot out of it. And I mean, so don't go around there and screw off because that just makes everyone around you mad and just. But if you go
Yeah.
there and you're focused, and you realize what you're there for, and you're really motivated to be a better wrestler, not only that, but a better person. Um,
Yeah.
that just stay focused, and that's the most important thing.
Okay. What about like, did you do anything before going to camp to like prepare for it, like conditioning or anything else like that?
Yeah, I stayed in pretty good shape. I lifted a lot more than I ran, so I'd say the push-ups were a little easier than the sprints. But um, yeah, I mean, you could see the other side of that coin where you might say, it's better not to get in insanely good shape because then maybe you won't get much of a mental aspect. I mean, yeah, get in shape, or else the first few weeks might be a little rough. But it doesn't hurt, to be in the number one running group. Me and Philippe were in that, and there was some pretty quick kids in there that really pushed us. And you couldn't sag back, or else you didn't want that negative. So
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely a plus to get in shape.
For sure. All right. How about you, Philippe?
As far as getting ready for camp, I don't think there's a whole lot you can do to really replicate, camp. But you're definitely not going to be able to be at the standard they expect you to be at, the first day one. Like, just because with camp, you have like 4 practices a day. You have, brutal conditioning workouts, hard practices. And so it's a hard thing to expect that when you get in there, you're just gonna hit a stride and you're just going to be in great shape. You definitely should be running a lot, and like lifting and just getting in good shape. But don't expect that you're going to be able to be in J-Bob level shape on day one. Again, like there's a lot. The mental aspect is that you have to get there. On day one, Jay said to us, our standards of hard work were like down here, and that his were up here, and that by the end of it, we'd all be up here with him. So you have to recognize that you should be prepared for and be in good shape. You're definitely going to be pushed, and that there's nothing you do there's going to be easy right away. Um, and other piece of advice, I'd say, consistency is important. Staying focused, a lot of it's the small details, like forgetting water bottles and workbook assignments that are gonna allow you to like not get your shirt. And like Jay said, our goal is to be plow horses, not race horses. We have to be able to come out there and do the same thing every single day, day after day, and consistently work hard. And at camp this summer, a big thing that was always said is, beat the day. For the counselors, when you go there, your goal it shouldn't be to, beat 28 days in that first morning. You shouldn't look at it as having to do 28 days. You just have to look at it day by day. Your goal should be, just worry about that next practice and just get through that next practice, and then just get through that day, and then go to bed and then wake up, and then just worry about that day. And if you start looking forward too much, which I did occasionally. You look forward and you're like, wow, I still have 3 more weeks of this. So you get halfway and you realize there's still 2 more weeks left. You're not even close. Really, you're closer, but you're not that close to seeing the light at the end of the tunnel yet. It's those days when you really feel crushed that you just have to keep that positive attitude and then just worry about getting through that day.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Awesome. Last question for you guys. If you remember any sort of like funny moments that happened to you guys or anybody else at camp, wrestling or in the dorms or anything like that, as long as it's a clean story. I'd love to hear what you guys got.
Um,
I see you there, Benny. You got a lot of not
Not
clean
quite sure.
stories, huh?
um, Jay was pretty funny sometimes. He I remember one time, I can't remember who the counselor was that was telling their motivation, but he was walking towards the back row, and you could tell that Jay couldn't hear him, and Jay just told the back row, he's like, if you can't hear him, just stand up and grab your nuts, and then of course, one kid did it, and then it was just that was sort of just sort of like a funny thing that sort of refreshed you and made you feel more at home, which is really important because at times there you can feel like you're so far away, and so I mean those laughter moments are definitely important. And my roommate, he was quite the funny kid, but he would say some funny stuff. I can't really remember it all, but I mean it's just little things like that would sort of brighten your mood, and that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Philippe?
I kind of just remember kind of towards the middle and the end of camp, when everyone just feels like really crushed and tired. I remember thinking how funny it was, how like the smallest little jokes seem to crack everyone up more than they should, just because everyone's just so tired, and it's not even sometimes it weren't even jokes. Sometimes it's like the workouts we had to do, or the things counselors made us do that we just found funny how hard they were. I remember some of the small moments were just we were warming up once for a hard practice, and we're just jogging around, and we had Conrad, and one kid in our group just happened to be smiling. And for some reason, Conrad saw it, and Conrad's like, "Oh, you think something's funny? Like, how's this for funny?" And he made him do 75 push-ups. I remember just seeing like how funny it was, like the ridiculous punishment that this poor kid had to do just for smiling. It was like Miss Woody back to one that no one ever wanted to hear, where you'd just be doing push-ups, and you'd be like on push-up 9, and some kid would screw up, and then you'd hear that back to 1, and like the kid that screwed up would sometimes like be like completely behind Woody, out of his vision, and that somehow Woody would just sense that someone had screwed up and just like turn around. And it's like those moments looking back that I just find funny. And there's also a lot of jokes. Remember, Joe Russell was really funny. He was leading in practice one day, and he was talking about this pinning combination, like the bridge, that like, or this movie you do called The Bridge, that like would put like the stands on their feet, like if you especially like he's like especially at away matches, fans love this, and he'd like lie down on his back and was like pinning himself. And there's like small little jokes that Joe had that were just really funny.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I remember. I was at that last red flag. Dan was watching Woody do the whole back to one thing in that big kind of oval shape that everybody was in, and I was standing next to a kid right at the back. Woody was facing like towards the opposite side of Bierman, and like all of a sudden he just like flips on his toes and like yells at this kid. Like I honestly like had no idea how you'd even seen it. It was crazy. But all right, cool. Well, I think that's about all the questions I got for you right now. So thanks so much to both of you for taking some time out of your night to help us out with this. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Please keep us updated on your guys' seasons. We wish you the best of luck, and definitely would like to be kept updated on how you guys do.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Cool, guys. All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye.
See ya.